All right, so as the honorary Jack Atlas cosplayer, I've made it my personal mission to make this deck my entire personality, as most people do when it comes to their pet decks. And so I figured I owed it to everyone to give my thoughts on the new structure deck, Pulse of the King, which is supposed to release in the OCG here in June. This was announced a couple of months back, but we just now finally got the cards revealed for it. And as of the time of recording this video, we only have 3 cards revealed for it, with more to come. And before we get too far into that, I wanted to kind of go over not what has been revealed for the deck, but what I personally wanted for the deck. And generally, you're going to find this with a lot of content I make where I don't like, speculative content. I don't like, being like, I think based on this evidence that this theory is valid and stuff. I don't really like that. And I also don't like custom cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I just think it's pointless to hypothesize about a fictional card that doesn't exist. But that being said, I came up with some ideas for what I would want for the Resonator slash Red Dragon Archfiend strategy, and kind of put these thoughts out there based on what I know about how the deck plays and what it already has access to. And I want to see if the cards that they design for Pulse of the King are anywhere close to that. So the first thing I came up with was a new Archfiend, a new level 4 Fiend, and I just called it Resonant Archfiend. Level 4 Dark Fiend, its attack and defense doesn't matter. And I said, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can take one card that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend or a level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro and either add it to your hand or send it to your graveyard. You can only use this effective Resonant Archfiend once per turn. This would help set up the graveyard with cards like Red Rain and Time to Stand Up, which is one of our only negates while in the grave. So if you have a card that on normal, let's say you special Crimson and you normal this card, you can make your Red Rising Dragon do your normal combo that gets you to Red Supernova Dragon, or let's say you do things a little bit differently, you end on like Abyss and some other stuff. If you have a card that does Foolish Burial Goods for Time to Stand Up, then you have another monster negate in the graveyard, or another card negate in the graveyard, with Time to Stand Up being in the graveyard. So having access to that, I feel like, is important, aside from just main decking Foolish Burial Goods and trying not to hard draw the brick Time to Stand Up, just to have another negate. So it's taking advantage of cards that already exist, and Red Rain being a really strong card in the archetype as well is something I wanted to see. I came up with a new Resonator. I just called it Power Resonator, level 3 Dark Fiend Tuner effect. Again, attack and defense doesn't matter. And I said, if this card is in your graveyard and you control a Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon this card from the graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. I'm just kind of designing this around Genta, the Dark World monster. And when this card is on the field and you control Dark Dragon Synchro, you can special summon a level 8 or lower Dark Dragon Synchro from your graveyard. You only use this effective Power Resonator once per turn. So if summoned off of Crimson Resonator's effect, you can make Red Supernova, and it would revive itself along with Red Rising to make Abyss, which is a lot stronger than just Red Supernova on its own. And funny enough, they did actually make a level 3 Resonator with the new support, and it may not be quite as good as this, but it is good, and I like what they made. So what I'm trying to do with this is, make the main combo that the deck has right now is you almost build the entire deck around like Red Supernova Turbo, and the deck really doesn't do a whole lot aside from that. So I'm trying to make sure that red, all the pieces that get you to that Red Supernova combo either are more insulated, more protected, more consistent, or just end on more stuff, so that it's not as flimsy. Like, Red Supernova is strong, but he's far from invincible, and he's not a powerful end boss for an archetype to be able to end on and actually manage to win games off of the one card itself, especially with the current meta and the level of power creep that's happened in the last year or two. And then the last thing that the deck needs is a new boss, but I know they're going to make one anyway, so this is what I came up with. So I came up with Majestic Red Nova Dragon. Obviously, it's a level 12 Dark Dragon Synchro at 4,000 attack, made with Majestic Dragon, 1 tuner, and 1 non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro. So you can make this with Majestic Dragon plus the new Majestic Dragon, the Converging Wills Dragon or whatever it's called, the new version that's a substitute for the original Majestic Dragon. This would be the equivalent of the Shooting Majestic Star Dragon from whatever set that was that came out in. And the effect would be if your opponent activates a card or effect during the battle phase, you can negate that effect. You can only use the effect of Majestic Red Nova Dragon once per turn. If this card battles, after damage calculation, banish all cards your opponent controls. Then this card can attack once again in a row. During the end phase of the turn, this card was Synchro Summon, return it to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon a level 12 Dark Dragon Synchro from your extra deck, except for Majestic Red Nova Dragon, ignoring its summoning conditions. So it's basically a beater that has protection during the battle phase that tags itself out into King Calamity or Red Supernova Dragon after its effect is resolved. And unfortunately, a lot of the Red Dragon Archfiend boss monsters top out at level 12. So there's no way to push the envelope past 12, like they already kind of cap out there. But I figured this would be, you would make it the same way you would make the shooting Majestic Star Dragon, and it would just kind of tutor itself out for one of the other ones. And I also made a field spell, which I just called, Pulse of the King, and I said you can only activate one Pulse of the King per turn. When this card is activated, you can add to hand one Resonator, normal or quick play spell, or one Burning Soul from your deck. Once per turn, you can target one Resonator or one Dark Dragon Synchro monster you control, increase or decrease its level by 1, and if you do, special summon one Majestic Dragon or Converging Wills Dragon from your hand or deck. So this is the way you would get into the Majestic Dragon thing. And being able to... This is something that I really still want to see with the new cards that they add to the structure deck, is a way to search Burning Soul, because I feel like the one thing that this deck will be able to do that will set it above other decks and make it actually worth playing is the ability to make King Calamity on your opponent's turn. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's a floodgate, oh, it stops me from playing, it shuts down everything, which is completely true and a bit unfair, but what else does the deck have going for it? Like, at least give them that. So, their combo crumbles to Ash and Imperm and Droll and everything else. So why not give them something powerful if they're left to go uninterrupted? Because let's face it, they're going to get interrupted, and this deck is still going to be casual at best. But, it's one of those things where if they go off, let them go off. So that's what I wanted to see for the deck. It's stuff that makes the deck more consistent, has access to the cards that already exist for the archetype, and is not stupidly overpowered like most custom cards are. Most of the time when you see somebody make a custom card, they are meme-worthy, ultra-powerful garbage. But now leave it up to Konami, and let's actually take a look at what they actually made. So here is Structure Deck Pulse of the King, which again releases in the OCG in June. And we have 3 World Premiere cards already revealed for it, with more on the way. The first one here is actually a retrain of Red Dragon Archfiend. So it's Scar Red Dragon Archfiend. And I like the artwork on this card. It's really, really freaking cool. And I do like that they did sort of a soft retrain with this one that makes you use the original. I feel like what they were going for with this is the Red Dragon Archfiend equivalent of the Stardust Dragon XL Synchro thing that just came out. So this card's name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while in the field or graveyard, which is huge. If this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, you can special summon one Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon, and then if this card was sent to the graveyard as Synchro material for a Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can destroy all opponents' attack position monsters. So the board wipe is a little overkill. If there's anything that this deck does easily, it's wipe the board. Because Hot Red does it, Scarlight does it, Supernova does it, even Tyrant does it. So the deck really has no shortage of mass destruction and board wipe, so I think that's kind of a silly addition. But a generic level 8, well, somewhat generic level 8, because it does require a non-tuner Dark monster, which is still pretty generic if you ask me, is pretty nice. But what this does allow you to do is if you synchro this guy off into Abyss, or even into the original Red Nova Dragon, or even into King Calamity, he just replaces himself with the vanilla Red Dragon Archfiend, which is just another level 8 body on the field. So the fact that you have to play the original Red Dragon Archfiend is a little bit lame, but I'm glad they integrated that into the archetype. And so this is okay. I'm not blown away by this, but I like that it replaces itself with another level 8 body because it basically does what that Resonator card that I wanted to do does, where it revives a guy. So again, if you make Abyss, you just get the material you made for Abyss back, plus a board wipe, and you can keep going. This also completely eliminates the need for Return of the Dragon Lords in the deck, because that was a card that you saw me splash in the deck many times before. And that card is now pretty much redundant with this card in the deck. So let's see what else we got here. We got a level 3 Resonator. We got Soul Resonator. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one level 4 lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand. And then you're locked into Dark Synchros. Now, the fact that you're locked into Dark Synchros, but not Dark Dragon Synchros, is huge, because you may still be able to access monsters like Gorza, the Tyrant of Thunder or whatever, which is a potentially like an Omni Negate on a Fiend Synchro, and he's really cool. And there's lots of other, dark Synchros that are not dragons that you can still make with this card potentially, so I really like that. And it doesn't rule out the fact we may get a retrain of like Dark Highlander, but speculative, yeah. So level 4 lower Fiend, your deck to your hand is pretty awesome. So it's almost like a Resonator command on legs. And again, the fact that it's level 3 I think is huge, because right now the only other level 3s that we have is the original Dark Resonator, which is useless by today's standards, and Creation Resonator, which is an extender that you can play one of, potentially two of, but to have another good level 3 is pretty much exactly what we needed from a Resonator, and that's why my custom card one was a 3 as well, so I think this is pretty good. Alright, so this is the best card they've made so far. This is Bone Archfiend, and you can only use the first and second effect of this card once per turn. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can send one other card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon this card. You cannot special summon monsters from the extract for the rest of the turn except for Dark Dragon Synchros. You can target one face-up monster you control, send one Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase or decrease that target's level by 1. So what's awesome about that is it lets you bin a Fiend Tuner from your deck, which means you can bin double Resonator and use the effect of double Resonator in the graveyard to turn a non-tuner body on the field into a Fiend, which means potentially you can go... Now, it does increase the level, but you could potentially go 4 and 4 with you turn one of your non-tuner level 4 Fiends into a tuner and go 4 and 4 again into Gorza, or straight into a Red Dragon Archfiend level 8 monster like Scarlight, or like the new one we just saw. So this, I think, is the best card they've made. The thing that the deck really lacked was a really good level 4 Fiend that got you a lot of value. And I like that he's kind of a retrain of Mad Archfiend. And that, like, this card is crazy. He's exactly what the deck needed as far as a good level 4 Fiend that gets you value, and it's not just something that you're playing to go with Crimson Resonator on your way to Red Supernova Dragon. Like, it's actually a card that does something, which is huge. And unfortunately, that is it for right now. Those are the only 3 cards that are revealed. But I'm hoping that we get a field spell or some kind of good spell. I'm hoping that we get a searchable... a way to search Burning Soul is the most important thing to me, because if we can search Burning Soul and set it, and we go through the Crimson Resonator Red Rising Dragon line a little bit differently, we can set up to make King Calamity on our opponent's turn, which locks them out, and then our turn we can push for game, which is probably the best thing that this deck could hope to do, given the current state of the meta and the cards it has access to. Something else as well, I will be buying an OCG version of the structure deck because, again, Jack Atlas cosplayer, huge fan of the character, the deck, the strategy, everything that has to do with this deck. I'll be buying an OCG version of this just for collectability, and maybe I'll open it on the channel. But when it comes to the English version of this deck, we have more considerations for common charity format. So if we get Abyss or Red Supernova Dragon as a common in the TCG version, that has massive implications for common charity format because there are a couple of people, like that's like 3 or 4 people, including myself, that are really passionate about common charity Resonator. And the problem is most of their good boss monsters don't exist in common charity because they've always been printed in a rarity. So you're basically stuck making either the original vanilla Red Dragon Archfiend or you're making Beals. It's basically Beals Turbo is common charity Resonators. So if they make even like Scarlight, but I'm hoping if they make Abyss and I'm happy with just Abyss. Abyss would be huge for common charity format because one of the cool things about common charity is the fact that there's not a lot, if any, Omni negates. So there's no you have to interact with bosses a lot more differently in common charity. Most of the bosses in common charity are just towers bosses or bosses with protection. They're not really bosses that set up omnis. So to have Abyss in the format would be crazy, and to have Red Supernova in the format would be even crazier, even though there's a lot of kaijus in common charity. But yeah, that's about all I have to say right now for the structure deck Pulse of the King. I'm very much looking forward to this, and I'll definitely give you guys an updated deck profile when all the cards have been revealed, and I'll see you guys next time.